How long can a heart hold on before it breaks? For 10 long years, every night ended with tears on the pillow and prayers whispered into the silence. There was no sign, no answer, just an aching hope that someday, somehow, things would change. And then, on a night that seemed like all the others, something happened. The weight of silence, 10 years of silence, But God was listening all along. Every tear shed in the darkness, every desperate plea, every moment when she wondered if her words reached beyond the ceiling of her room. The silence wasn't absence, it was preparation. It was God weaving an answer so perfect that it needed the right time, the right heart, the right condition to manifest. She didn't know it, but while she waited in the valley of waiting, her faith was being refined like gold and fire. Each night without an answer wasn't rejection. It was the construction of something greater than she could imagine. The prayer echoed 1,000 times. A prayer repeated 1,000 times finally answered. The same words, the same cry, the same desperate need that sprang from the deepest part of her soul. How many times had she questioned if she was being heard? How many times had she thought about giving up on those words that seemed to disappear into the void? But there's something powerful about persistent faith. Each repetition wasn't redundancy, it was declaration. It was her soul telling the universe, I still believe, I still hope, I still trust that you have something better for me. The night she almost gave up, became the night everything changed. How ironic that the most beautiful stories begin in the darkest moments. She was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally drained. The strength to continue had evaporated, and for the first time in 10 years, she considered stopping praying, stopping waiting, stopping believing. It was as if the universe had waited for exactly that moment of total surrender to intervene. Because sometimes, we need to reach the end of ourselves so that God can begin working through us. The mysterious dream, a mysterious dream that couldn't be explained, came that night. It wasn't just an ordinary dream, it was vivid, real, loaded with meaning she couldn't ignore. Images, words, sensations that transcended logic but touched directly at the center of her deepest need. When she woke up, something had changed. She couldn't explain it rationally, but she knew she had received a visit from the impossible. The dream brought clarity where there had been confusion, hope where there had been despair, and an inexplicable certainty that her waiting was coming to an end. The encounter no one believed, an encounter no one believed until the miracle happened. How do you explain to others something that defies all logic? How do you make people understand that sometimes the supernatural invades the natural in ways our hearts recognize, but our minds struggle to accept? She tried to tell them, but words seemed insufficient. So she decided not to convince anyone, just to live the transformation she had experienced. And when the miracle manifested in reality, the skeptics became witnesses. How pain prepared her purpose. How pain prepared her for a purpose she never imagined. Every tear had been an investment. Every difficult night a lesson. Every moment of brokenness, a molding for something much greater than her own need. The pain hadn't been punishment, it had been preparation. God was forging in her an empathy, a depth, a strength that could only be born from suffering transformed into wisdom. She discovered she had been called not just to receive the miracle, but to be an instrument of hope for other wounded hearts. The sign she begged for, delivered in an impossible way. For years, she had asked for confirmation, something tangible that would show she wasn't alone in her struggle. When it finally came, it was so specific, so unlikely, so perfectly aligned with her most intimate requests that there was no doubt about its origin. It wasn't a subtle sign that needed interpretation, it was a clear, undeniable manifestation that said, I've been here all along. I saw every tear, I heard every prayer, and now is the time. The breakthrough moment, a breakthrough that defied logic and timing. When it came, it didn't come as she expected. It didn't follow the plan she had drawn in her mind. It was faster, more complete, more transformative than any scenario she had imagined. Within days, what seemed impossible became reality. Doors that had been closed for years opened. Situations that seemed without solution found resolution. What had taken a decade to be built in the invisible manifested in the visible at breathtaking speed. From broken to bold, what she did the moment it all shifted. Her first reaction wasn't unbridled euphoria, but deep gratitude and sacred responsibility. She understood that she had received not just a personal blessing, but a mission. The woman who emerged from that experience was no longer the same one who had entered 10 years before. Pain had transformed into purpose, fear into faith, hopelessness into unshakable determination to use her story to touch other lives. Your night may be coming, while your darkest season might be one night away from light. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself in her journey, know that there's no waste in God's economy. Every tear of yours is being collected. Every prayer is being heard. Every moment of resistance is building something you can't see yet. The darkest night always comes before dawn. And sometimes, what seems like the end of the story is just God turning the page to the most beautiful chapter you could never have written alone. A prayer for your heart. If you've made it this far and your soul resonates with this story, this is the moment to pray. It doesn't matter how long you've been waiting. It doesn't matter how many tears you've shed. It doesn't matter if you almost gave up last night. God is still writing your story. Let's pray together. Father, I come before you today with a heart that carries so much weight. Just like the woman in this story, I too have been waiting. I too have cried tears that seemed endless. I too have whispered prayers in the silence of dawn, wondering if you're really listening. Lord, I confess there are moments when my faith wavers. There are nights when I question whether my prayers reach you. There are days when the exhaustion is so great that I think about stopping believing. But today, in this moment, I choose to trust that you have a plan for my life. Father, I know your timing isn't my timing.